what's so fascinating is if you just take it to the extreme, and I forget who I heard say this, but I thought it was just so articulate. If the debt doesn't matter, if the printing of money doesn't matter, then let's just print $3 quadrillion. Right? Yeah. Like if it literally doesn't matter, then like let's just add a bunch more zeros to the end when we're printing, and rather than have $2 trillion stimulus bills, let's literally just do a 2 quadrillion stimulus bill. Now, obviously, nobody who is sane or serious would ever actually argue to do that, because it does matter to some degree. And
come on, if it was that easy, Pomp, we've talked about this, when we first met. If creating wealth was as simple as printing money, wouldn't everyone do that? Wouldn't every country just print money? That's not how wealth is created, right? I mean, I have in my office, I could go get it for you, a 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollar bill. Wouldn't buy a loaf of bread. $100 trillion, right, that I own. I couldn't buy a loaf of bread in Zimbabwe. So how many bolivars does it take to buy a chicken in Venezuela? How many pesos in Argentina? It's just this fallacy that debt and deficits don't, but we're the world reserve currency. Well, for now, the UK was the world reserve currency for 75 years. And they thought they could spend as much as they wanted, just like we do. And they thought they could invade anybody they wanted to, just like we do. And in 1913, they invaded Mesopotamia, incurred a bunch of debt. The pound sterling collapsed. The dollar ascended. 30 years later, Bretton Woods, we became the world reserve currency. Then coincidentally, we invaded Mesopotamia, incurred a bunch of debt. The dollar collapsed. The renminbi ascended. China became, that hasn't happened yet. It will.
You think that the Chinese renminbi will end up being the global reserve currency?
Yep.
Walk me through kind of what the thought process of where we are today to how we get there.
Yeah. So profligate spending in the US, right? All empires fail the same way, whether it's the British Empire, the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, they all fail the same way, through massive amounts of debt. When you become massively indebted, you only got 4 choices. You can pay it back. Couldn't do that, right? You could tax the assets of all the people in the United States, their wealth, forget their income, tax all their wealth. You couldn't pay back the debt. All of it. Can't do it. So you can't pay it back. So then you can restructure it. Problem is, if you structure it, someone's got to take the other side. No one's going to take the other side. Third, you can default on it. Emerging markets default all the time, but we can't do that because there's no IMF to bail us out. And, by the way, if you default, what happens? You get kicked out of power, and politicians like to stay in power. Fourth, you can devalue it. And that's what we will do. So we will continue to devalue. Everyone says, the dollar's so strong. The dollar's so strong. No, it's not. The dollar's down versus the renminbi over the last 2 years. Fact. The dollar only shows to be up because we compare it to toilet paper. I mean, we compare it to the yen, which is hilarious, and we compare it to the euro, which is just as bad. And because those went down more, DXY went up a little bit, not even a lot, but we are down versus the renminbi. Now, this is but the last couple of weeks. Whatever. The Chinese are playing a different game. They, I believe, intentionally are creating this nonsense, supply chain garbage to create a greater alignment with them. They started with Southeast Asia and Africa. Now they've got Russia, and they are creating this massive axis of alignment that all are going to move to use the renminbi. And over time, the petrodollar system will weaken and erode. Without the petrodollar system, we're just a little country that does 8% of global trade.